How much of human life is shaped by folly, and how much by reason? We like to think of ourselves as creatures of logic, our history a steady march of progress guided by intellect. But what if the driving force behind our civilizations, our relationships, and even our greatest achievements isn't wisdom at all, but it's playful, chaotic, and often ignored sibling, folly? Imagine a goddess, born not on Olympus but from the rich soil of human absurdity. She wears a crown of self-admiration and a gown stitched with joyful ignorance. This is folly, and over 500 years ago, one of the greatest minds of the Renaissance gave her a voice. In the heart of the Renaissance, a time of profound cultural transformation, Europe was bursting with new ideas. The printing press was spreading knowledge like wildfire. Ancient Greek and Roman texts were being rediscovered, and a movement known as humanism was placing humanity, with all its potential and all its flaws, at the center of the universe. It was an age of brilliant artists, daring explorers, and profound thinkers, and among them, Erasmus stood as a giant. His origins are shrouded in some mystery. Born the illegitimate son of a priest, perhaps this outsider-est perspective gave him the sharp vision needed to see society for what it truly was. He became a traveling scholar, a citizen of the world of letters, corresponding with the intellectual elite of his time. He was a master of classical languages, a dedicated theologian, and a passionate advocate for education and reform. But Erasmus was no dry academic. He possessed a razor-sharp wit and a deep understanding of human nature. In the summer of 1509, while crossing the Alps on his way back from Italy to England, an idea began to take shape. He was heading to stay with his good friend, Sir Thomas More. Playing on More's name, which sounds like the Greek word for fool, Erasmus conceived of a daring, satirical masterpiece. He would write a book not in his own voice, but in the voice of folly herself. He called it Moria Encomium, or In Praise of Folly. The book was an immediate sensation, a scandal, and a runaway bestseller. Folly begins by boasting of her own importance. Who, she asks, is responsible for the continuation of the human race? Not the grim-faced philosopher contemplating eternal truths, but the delirious, love-struck fool who sees perfection in their partner. It is folly who presides over marriage, who makes the burdens of parenthood bearable with blissful ignorance, and who allows old age to be a time of happy second childhood rather than bitter regret. She claims that without her, life would be an unbearable slog. Who would build a house, lead an army, or govern a city without a healthy dose of irrational optimism? Wisdom, she argues, makes men timid and hesitant. She looks at friendship and asks, what is it but a mutual agreement to overlook each other's faults? What is happiness but a pleasant form of delusion? Folly claims that all the joys of life spring from her. The truly wise man, she suggests, is a miserable creature, tormented by reality, while the fool lives in a state of perpetual, blissful contentment. From these universal observations, folly's gaze sharpens, turning to the powerful institutions of Erasmus's day. With a mischievous grin, she skewers the so-called wise. She mocks the grammarians who argue endlessly over a single comma, the philosophers who build elaborate systems of logic that have no connection to real life, and the scientists who can name every star but know nothing of themselves. They are all her followers, she declares, trapped in their own specialized brand of foolishness. But her most potent venom is reserved for the Church. This was a dangerous game. In an age of heresy trials and the looming threat of the Inquisition, criticizing the clergy was no small matter. Yet, through the clever mask of folly, Erasmus unleashes a torrent of satire. Folly describes theologians who debate absurd questions, like whether God could have taken the form of a cucumber, while ignoring the simple teachings of the Gospels. She points to popes, cardinals, and bishops who live like princes, obsessed with wealth and warfare, forgetting they are supposed to be shepherds of Christ's flock. By having the goddess of stupidity claim these powerful men as her most devoted disciples, Erasmus was making a devastating critique. He was suggesting that the highest echelons of society, the very people who claimed to possess ultimate wisdom and divine authority, were in fact the most foolish of all. He wasn't just attacking individuals, he was attacking the hypocrisy and corruption that had grown within the very heart of Christendom. In Praise of Folly is more than just a brilliant satire. It is a profound work of humanism. Erasmus believed in the power of reason, education, and returning to the original sources of Christian faith. We are creatures of passion, instinct, and, yes, foolishness. He saw that a life guided only by cold, hard logic would be unlivable. We need the foolishness of hope to get out of bed in the morning. We need the delusion of love to build families. We need the irrationality of faith to find meaning in a chaotic world. The book ends on a surprisingly spiritual note. Folly argues that the ultimate form of foolishness is the Christian faith itself. The disciples were simple, uneducated men. Christ's teachings about turning the other cheek and loving one's enemies seem utterly foolish from a worldly perspective. The ultimate Christian goal, the ecstatic union with God, is a state that transcends reason entirely, a kind of divine madness. In this final, brilliant twist, Erasmus suggests that the folly of the cross is, in fact, the highest form of wisdom. Erasmus lived to see his world torn apart by the very forces he had hoped to reform. His calls for moderation and reasoned debate were drowned out by the rising fury of the Protestant Reformation and the Catholic Counter-Reformation. He was caught in the middle, criticized by both sides for not being radical enough. He died in Basel in 1536, a man who loved unity in a world determined to divide itself. But his voice, speaking through the playful, audacious goddess of folly, echoes down the centuries. He reminds us that self-importance is the greatest trap, that laughter is a sacred weapon against tyranny, and that a little bit of foolishness is essential for a well-lived life. The world is still full of pompous experts, power-hungry leaders, and people who take themselves far too seriously. We are still caught between our aspirations for wisdom and our inescapable, very human, tendency for folly. Perhaps the ultimate lesson from Erasmus is not to eradicate our foolishness, but to understand it, to laugh at it, and to harness its joyful, creative, and life-affirming power, to find the delicate balance between the head and the heart, between the solemnity of the library and the laughter of the carnival. For in that balance lies not perfect reason, but something far more valuable, human wisdom. Thank you for watching. If you found value in this exploration, consider subscribing for more journeys into the history of ideas.